Welcome back to the Whatnauts review show number 230, where each week we have a different story to talk about. Could be a comic, could be a movie, TV show, anime, manga, all sorts of stuff. We read it, we watch it, we do what we have to do to come back here and talk about it. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson.
Hello.
Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How was your weekend going? What have you been up to?
The weekend has been good. We have started watching Star Wars Clone Wars, the cartoon. I guess, second full time through watching it. I watched it a number of years ago in full. I bought the big old box set. I fell in love with it. And that's the show that really got me into Star Wars and stuff. And so we are now starting to rewatch it. My girlfriend is watching it for the first time, and we have a like companion podcast.
Oh, that's helpful.
Along. Yeah. So shout out to A More Civilized Age. They do a fantastic Star Wars Clone Wars podcast. So
awesome.
Yeah. That's what we've been up to. And then my headphones died. I think I'm on different headphones this week because the ones I normally had just weren't working. So ups and downs all around. What about you though? What's your weekend been like?
I had a virtual convention for Geeks Who Drink Trivia, the company I host pub quizzes for.
Nice.
So we had virtual games and virtual panels and a little virtual world we could walk around in.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's like we're walking around in a harvest moon or something like that. You got your little pixelated villager. You go in all these little houses, and that's where your panels are.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. And when you went into each like house to start a panel, were you still like in the house? You could see the interior of the house, or was it like, okay, now you're just on a Zoom call?
No, there's like little benches you make your character go sit in.
Huh.
It's kind of cool.
Kind of wild.
It's no replacement for an in-person convention, but it is an improvement over just a bunch of Zoom windows.
Absolutely. Cool. We are not here to talk about virtual reality or a galaxy far, far away. We're here to continue our coverage on Kaijumax. If you would like to hear us talk about the first 2 volumes of Kaijumax, we covered that previously about a handful of episodes ago, 6 episodes ago or so. So you guys can go check that out there. But we are continuing our coverage now. We're covering volumes 3 and 4 this time on the podcast. Yeah, I think we will finish up our coverage on Kaijumax at the end of November, because this is typically reserved for our end of the month specials. Of course, there's this little small caveat with that at the end of October, which we save for more spooky stuff since it's Halloween.
Yeah.
So there you go. Kaijumax. If you don't know, this is a comic book written and drawn by Zander Cannon. It is all about kaiju, giant monsters who are in prison, a prison called Kaijumax. And it's their stories just in and around the prison. This time on the podcast, they are in volumes 4. They even go into the women's prison and stuff like that. So we're starting to see stuff on both sides of the prison. We're starting to see stuff with the guards. We're starting to see stuff with the guards at home. There was previously stuff happening on the moon. All sorts of things.
Yeah.
We get all sorts of crazy stories here in Kaijumax. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I think last time we covered this, we mentioned there was a little bit of confusion as to what we were reading.
Okay. So you told me we're reading 2 volumes a month, except there is no volume 6 yet. It was just going to be a bunch of individual issues we're going to have to get, right?
That's at least the way that Comixology Unlimited has it. Yeah.
Right. But then also volumes 1 and 2 and volumes 3 and 4 were both collected into these big mega editions. Mm-hmm. And I got confused and thought each mega edition was a volume. And so I read both of them for last month's episode. And I got to be honest, I re-listened to last month's episode, but I did not have time to like get my tablet out and like flip back through the 600 pages of Kaijumax Volume 2. So I have read this, but it was like 5 weeks ago.
A little bit, yeah.
You're going to need to remind me on a lot of things. I'm going to remember approximate shapes, but I won't remember what that character's name is. I'll just be like, that one dinosaur lady who jogs. Her.
Yeah. Well, you guys also know me. I'm notoriously terrible with names.
This isn't going to go well.
Gonna be a blast. But yeah, so we read the Deluxe Edition Volume 2 this time, which collects Volume 3 and 4 here. But yeah, Kaijumax has been a lot of fun. In Volume 3, we are still back in the guy's prison. I think we're kind of finishing up that storyline, or at least I think, if it continues to go the way in my mind, I think we'll spend the final 2 volumes in the women's prison, but I don't know because I haven't read them yet. But that seems to at least be the way the book is forming right now. But yeah, we pick back up with the guys in the guy prison, Electogor, who made his escape to get back to his kids in the first 2 volumes. He's now been reunited with them, but things went poorly with that. He found out that his kids are now kind of living on the streets and having to learn how to survive and do some things that he does not want them doing. That's not the life that he wants for his kids. And unfortunately, they get picked back up. They get arrested again. And this time the whole family is sent to Kaijumax and separated because the daughter goes off to the women's prison. But here in Volume 3, we pick back up with the stuff that's happening in the guy's prison, and things have kind of heated up in this. They're starting to talk about the final species war, and a big riot eventually ensues. And then when we get to Volume 4, we check in on the women's prison, and we see Electogor's daughter start to see what's happening over there. Who are the gangs over here? How do they run this prison over there? And what the differences are in that. We also eventually see a prison birth. There's a pregnant inmate who is giving birth. And some more crazy stories over there on that side. But that's kind of it for catching us up on what happened in these 2 volumes without too many spoilers. But that's what's going on. Melissa, from what you remember, what do you remember?
Not much.
From this like final species war, or if you just want to focus on like what you remember from the women's prison. How did you like this second helping of Kaijumax?
I remember that I did enjoy this after Volume 1 ends, where Electogor goes out, finds his kids. There's this big battle and they have to be brought back in again. The first couple chapters of Volume 2 aren't about them. It's about other corners of prison life, and it takes you a couple chapters to realize, what's Electogor doing? Why haven't we seen him? When are we going to catch up with him? And Electogor is a character you really empathize with, but there is a lot going on in the story, and I like there are a lot of other perspectives it can show us, and that doesn't feel like filler or anything like that. They're valuable perspectives. It's really nice to have that change of pace, to have that change of setting. I think the book knows when to give that to you. And then when you get to see the protagonist again, it's like, I appreciate seeing you again. It was nice to have a little break. It's nice that this book knows when you need a break from certain things. And I think it's pretty good at moving around in all its different storylines.
Yeah. It's focusing on multiple kaiju and their issues, as well as like the guards and the economy of the prison itself, and like what's happening within the walls there, as well as some of the like home lives of some of the guards and stuff. And it does a very good job of mixing it up. I would agree with that. I liked my time with this second batch here. I felt like I knew a little bit more of what I was getting into. Even when they introduced the women's prison, it was like obviously very familiar because it's still Kaijumax, which I may be a little bit confused on that, because I also thought they were just on a single island, but maybe not. They might be on like a group of islands.
Maybe
one prison on one island, the women's prison on another. Because at the start of each of these, at least of these deluxe editions, there is a map of what the prison looks like. And it's like your typical like fantasy map of like, here's the island with all of the stuff there. And that is helpful to a degree. I didn't really find myself going back to be like, okay, where are they now on this island? But both prisons look the same because it's just kind of this like the major topography of this island, right? Because there are giant kaiju, so it is just like, okay, they're on a hill, they're on a mountain, here they are on a tree, right? So it's not super visually distinct between the prisons, but I think that also helps with the familiarity of just like, okay, like I get that we're in Kaijumax. Even the monsters, for most of them, there's no easy way to be like, what gender are you? I don't know. It's just they're a monster, and you're told that this is the women's prison. That's it. That's all you get.
There's a nice assortment of visual designs over in the women's prison. It's not like, this is just Godzilla, but pink or with the bow on its head.
No, there continues to be some incredible monster design. All that stuff is fantastic. I think we said this last time too. Kaijumax is just fun. It's pure fun.
Yeah.
Like there are some like darker stories, some heavier topics and stuff, but even still, like it manages to be a book that just, you can tell Zander Cannon just has this encyclopedic knowledge of all these monster movies and giant mechs and stuff like that. And he just absolutely loves it. And I think it really, really shines through and continues to here in this book here. So I am having a blast. Indeed. I guess you might not have any other kind of final spoiler-free thoughts in this. I mean,
there's bits I can talk about that aren't a spoiler. Like, we do get to see our first prison play in this volume, which is what I had been waiting for. I'm like, show me that. I know this happens. I've seen it in other movies and TV shows. Where's the play? Where's the prison theater troupe? We finally do get there.
Yeah, absolutely. We also start to get some more, I would call them cryptids, but I guess that's because I don't really know. But we get to see characters like Baba Yaga and stuff like that.
Folklore monsters.
Yeah. Or I mean, she herself is I guess I don't really know Baba Yaga, but like she herself is a witch, but she's in this, like, she's in her house in the prison, so it is this like house on these giant chicken legs and stuff like that. So I thought that was neat to be like, oh, there's also this like odd mirror to the prison guards who are in these like giant mech
Yeah.
They're just this like smaller monster.
Wow,
but in
I've
this,
never
like,
thought about
giant
it like that
suit.
before.
Yeah.
Like Baba Yaga's house is like a mech suit that she rides around.
It's like it's a like non-metallic suit. It's just like a mechanical like woods and parts, and then like magic chicken legs.
Right. Is Howl's Moving Castle a mech?
I guess it could be. Howl's Moving Gundam, right? Goodness. Yeah, so there's all sorts of fun stuff in here too. I did like the twist of this birth, this inmate that gives birth here. The father never shows up, and she's like, he'll be here. I just know it. He'll be here, and then ends up not being there for reasons that become very apparent once you see the child. And we're just like, oh, I was not expecting that. That was a interesting, wild twist.
I think that is the most memorable part of Volume 2 for me, was that storyline. Yeah,
good stuff. I enjoyed my time with these volumes here. So I say let's take a quick break for housekeeping, and then when we get back, we can finally dive into spoilers and all that and start talking about the book more in depth. So we will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and a thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you'd like to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much. It means a ton.
Thank you.
We love you a lot. Cool things that we have been up to here at the Whatnauts. Of course, all last month here on the review show was Spooky Month. We covered all sorts of different horror movies and TV shows and manga and all sorts of things. There's a big grab bag of stuff for you guys to check out. And it's it's one of the traditions that we do here on the review show. So every single October.
Not that it's that unique. I mean, I'm sure this is every media podcast tradition. It's not like they only celebrate Halloween once every 5 years.
No, but my point is they can go back and find more every single
That's true.
year. Yeah.
If you listen to these and you're like, what did you guys talk about in 2018? What was spooky then? You can go listen to us talk about, what was it, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, that comic series?
Yeah. Something like that. Here on they're not here on, but on the Captain's Log, we also did our Halloween tradition for the Captain's Log, in which we took the older stories that we had talked about on that podcast, and we turned them into horror stories, real life things that happened to myself and Melissa, and we are changing them and twisting them. So we did that 2 weeks ago for our Halloween special, and then this past week it was back to catching up on pop culture news, all that stuff. Melissa saw some potentially weird street race, but not a street race thing that led to some mysterious dark office building.
Right. If people have
next year in the Halloween thing, right?
If there are people who do street races at 9:30 p.m. in a suburban Missouri office park, I guess I saw that.
Yeah, we're not sure what it was exactly. But if you want to hear about that, that's on the captain's log. And then for the reactor core, we have our latest reactions up to Star Wars Andor, episodes 7 through 9. I have to say, the end of episode 9, goosebumps, tingles. Andy Serkis has a line in there that's just like, oh man, it's about to go down. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun, and Andy Serkis is phenomenal. In
good in everything,
role.
Andy Serkis.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, be on the lookout for more stuff from all of our shows coming up. But that's about it for housekeeping. So let's get into spoilers. Bam, there we go. Cool. So Melissa, do you remember much from that species final war thing going on?
Not at all.
There, no. So yeah, like when we pick back up with what we read, we are still in the Kaijumax prison that we had stuck with last time. And we see Electogor and his son are now being put in or back in Kaijumax. And when he gets there, it's the same old characters, and we're just kind of checking in with them again. Things had kind of like we knew like who the gangs were. We got the cryptids over here. We got the like mecha. I don't want to say Godzillas because they're not all Godzillas, but we got the like mecha monsters over there. All that sort of stuff, and things have kind of progressed enough where tensions are high all over. Electogor now goes to Mechazon, and he's like, hey, I want to employ you to kill Zon. Like I like for what he did to me. Now that I'm back here, he thinks he owned, like, I've had enough. Like, this is it. I want to like this is your purpose. This is what you were built for. So I want you to be the one to exact my revenge. And Mechazon, now that he's turned to his techno religion, I don't know exactly what to call that, is just like
the cloud. Worships the cloud.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. Like I need to go against my programming here. And he like Electogor. That's from what I remember off the top of my head. I know I was the one that just read it more recently, but that's kind of where that storyline progresses to. Because I think one of the first big twists that we get in this volume is that if you remember, Zon is also in that relationship with the nurse.
Of the doctor. Kyle, she's a doctor.
Yes. Doctor.
Is her name Dr. Zhang? Is that it?
Yeah, Dr. Zhang. And she's also kind of starting to get fed up with him, and eventually he hits her, and she's just like, that's it. Like, we're done. And she goes feral and ends up killing him. And so then when like I forget like who shows up to be like, all right, now's our chance, let's go kill him. They like turn the corner and he's already like ripped to shreds by her, and they're all just like, oh shit, like what happened here? And we don't necessarily get that story till later when we see Dr. Zhang, who is now in the women's prison, and she's reflecting back on that.
It's fascinating that they send her to the women's prison because she's a normal human woman who's got one of those Ultraman suits, but her suit is stuck. She can't size down. So simply because of the size of her, they have to put her in the women's side of Kaijumax. She can't go to a normal human prison. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that they at least have a space for. I mean, not that I like that they have a space for her, but like,
Mm.
but they have a prison. It's like, well, I guess we could put you in with the monsters. Sure, and it's just like, well, yeah, it's an interesting turn of events for the story.
Yeah.
And that was neat to see there. But in the midst of Electogor coming back and him being there with his kid, which is kind
Yeah.
of a wild thing that we at least didn't really get much of in that volume. Maybe we'll return to that story because I have a feeling there's going to be, I mean, it is also a giant monster story. So I have a feeling this is not going to end well. And there's going to be some like giant monster attack or break or something. And I think Electogor and his kids will be reunited somehow, some way. But we see Electogor and his son, but we don't get much of them talking of like, so you were here before, and like what was it like? All like we don't get much of them talking and coping and reconciling of like, hey, I've gotten out of here once. I just need to make the right connections again, and we can go find your sister and get her out, right? And I'm hoping we get more into that in the final 2 volumes for next time, because I think that's a really interesting kind of pairing, right? I'm sure it happens where father and sons are in the same prison. That's really unfortunate, but that's just not something in fiction I've seen much of. So I really liked that bit that he now has this extra bit of like, I for real need to, like, I'm not just taking care of me, like I need to protect my son too. So I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, which was another one of the reasons why he wanted Zahn killed. Like, he didn't want Zahn going after his son, and he didn't want to look weak in front of his son either, I think. Might have been part of it.
I can believe that for sure. But yeah, so in the midst of that, we also get something that I was really interested in was the this goat character.
Yes, the creature of Devil's Creek.
Yeah.
Although his mother calls him Daniel.
Daniel, yeah. What a great name.
He gets a visitation there at the prison, and the visitation is like the human character visiting them is in this like room with a big glass window that's like set up on a hill, so that they are looking at the eye line of this giant monster. They're on like an observation deck, and it's this very sweet seeming nun. And the twist is that she's some sort of a satanic nun, and his dad is Satan. That's how you make a goat man.
Yeah. Which was great because she like your only hint at first is that her cross that she has is upside down, but like if you're not really paying attention, you won't notice that. And then when she starts like praying, because she's the like, are you eating, like, are you taking care of, like, she is caring for her son. I think that is a big misconception of Satanists, is that they want to hurt everyone and do all of that, right? But she loves her son, and it's like, are you eating, like all that stuff, and it's like, can I pray for you? Can we pray right now? And then when she starts praying, it is this like, wait, what? Oh my God, no, not oh my God, oh my Satan, what's happening here? Like,
right, like her voice changes, like, and like Satan has to take her form in order to talk to his son. And the creature of Devil's Creek's like, no, Mom, I don't want to talk to Dad. There's no need to bring Dad into
this. Don't
put
Dad on the phone. Don't put Dad on the phone. No. Yeah, that was fantastic.
He was one of my favorite storylines in this volume, because it is within the larger narrative and within, I can imagine like prison narratives in general, it's about how far you go when you were tested, how much you exceed what you thought were your limits, were your standards, were your morals, how harsh and hardened of a person you can become. But Creature Devil's Creek, he starts as a coward and he never breaks out of that. He never hardens up. And I think that's an interesting journey for that character to go on, is accepting this place isn't going to change me. The only thing it's going to do is make me more scared.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I don't know if I read this right or not, but when it did get into his backstory and his history with his family, it seemed like he was the kind of cryptid that was often misunderstood. Like people saw him out in the wild and he wasn't supposed to be seen. So it was actually Satan that then went and killed all these people. But because they were specifically looking for this goat and had made it known, like they think the goat did it. So I think that's how he got arrested. I think he's not actually the culprit of all of this. I think I read that right, but I think his devil dad was killing everybody who saw him, and he was disappointed in his son that he wouldn't want to kill any of these hikers himself. He just wanted to be half goat man. He just wanted to be a goat man thing, right?
Yeah, he just wants to frolic in the woods and he doesn't want to kill anybody. And his dad's like, Daniel, I always have to clean up your messes for you. I don't want to do that anymore. You're on your own here in prison.
You need to learn to clean up after yourself, which he means murder. And yeah, he's confronted by some of the other inmates in there to join their gang, to start selling stuff for them, just to be more a part of things there. And he doesn't really want to be a part of it. He's too scared. And eventually they kind of, I forget exactly what the reason was that sparked it, that they were like, okay, we need to kill him. I think it was maybe just like a show of force within the gang. Like they needed to do something.
Maybe.
I
also don't
exactly.
super remember this part, but that sounds right.
But essentially they take Daniel to cross a river, which this is something that I did not know in folklore, that like evil spirits or something are not able to cross rivers. That's something I had never heard of.
Running water is like something that will like destroy a malevolent spirit. Like it'll take away its power, like a ring of salt crossing running water, sunlight, stuff like that props up in a lot of mythology.
Interesting. I've seen the salt thing. The salt thing is everywhere. That's the one thing that I know, but I've never heard the like running water stuff. So there is a big. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to say that I like that that's what they're using to hurt him, and so they take him to a riverbank. And the only threat is, we're going to make you cross the river. They're not there to, that's how they kill him. There's no other threat of violence. I like this seemingly innocuous, even peaceful thing being this character's instrument of downfall.
That is fascinating. And I before he stepped in, I was really wondering, my mind was like, I really like this concept, but I don't know. I was like, he's legitimately half man, half demon. So what does that leave him on the other side there? I was like, they can't really take that out of him. Like it's a part of his DNA. And it's not like he's a malevolent spirit in the sense that he he murdered 1,000 people and sacrificed them to his father and he wants to stay away from it all. Like we said, he's a coward. He's not really a malevolent spirit. He's not an evil spirit. So what's it going to make it? And then he crosses it and he's just a goat. Just a tiny little goat.
And there's somebody then steps on him, squishes him. And you think, oh no, that's it. That's the end of the Creature of Devil's Creek. But they had set up this other prisoner and I don't really remember his name or what he looks like, but it's another like huge, like maybe the biggest prisoner on the whole island, huge, terrifying looking monster. And he's like absolutely at the top of the food chain. And like, he doesn't need to prove that to anybody. Like, he's so big, he's so scary looking that he doesn't really do anything. He just sits peacefully, by a pond or something and takes care of like little animals that are growing there on the island. Like he's
like
become so
sharks and stuff.
He's become so powerful that he's reached this sort of level of peace and contentedness in his life. Like there's nothing he needs to strive for. And so we see Creature of Devil's Creek get squished. And then like chapters later, we see that bigger monster has like found him and nursed him back to health. Yeah. And that's where he lives now. He's just a simple pet for this big peaceful monster.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope we get to see more of Daniel down the road. I did like that character. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm wondering, like, is there a way to get an evil spirit back inside him to return him to his normal self? Is that possible? Who knows? But yeah, I liked that storyline a lot too. We also checked back in with Wofi, who was the like monster that ended up killing his dad. I guess we did see a monster and his dad in prison before.
Woofy and Ape Whale.
Yeah. But he's still there. Little boy is still haunting him. We still don't really know exactly if he like, is this guy real? Can he, like, I think we did see a scene where other characters are looking at him and he's like,
I don't remember. Right now I'm just regretting that neither of us dressed up as Lil Boy for the Halloween episode.
That'd be a great one.
It's so simple.
We get to check back in on him. Wofi was also a coward, but this is also another like, hey, let's take a story about this monster that maybe seems a little more pathetic, but instead of getting the evil spirit taken out of him and squished, Woofy ends up becoming this like giant monster and ends up like killing a bunch more people, or at least like fighting them off. And so that was interesting to see, because I liked that monster design too. Yeah, man, like I like all of these smaller stories that we're checking in with. I still want to kind of get back to Electogor, because he very much had that like main character energy and stuff like that. But I think they've built up a few of these storylines that I'm like, you know what? I actually do kind of like these characters. Like, let me check back in with what these guys are up to. So.
Yeah, I want to talk about that play that I mentioned, because this is something that I was hoping the story would get into, was what sort of educational or cultural or extracurricular programs are there that the prison puts on for the inmates to do? Like, when are they going to do a play? And we get, in the first volume, we were introduced to Red and Green Humungo. And in this volume, they've captured all their brothers, all their different colored brothers. And there's a visual gag where they are brought to the prison packed inside a giant crayon box. And there's the director's footnote from Zander Cannon that says, I know this doesn't make any sense, but it's so silly and I love it. And I'm like, I love it too. I'm with you. They get packed in a big crayon box. And then there's no setup to this. There's no lead in. You don't know what's happening. You just cut to all the Humungos doing a Hamilton style retelling of the original 1954 Godzilla. And there was an American edit of the original 1954 Godzilla where they had the actor Raymond Burr playing like a reporter that was going to investigate these events. So they just sort of cut him into the original footage and like refilm some scenes with the Japanese actors, I think, sort of give it a little bit more of an American audience appeal. So the part in this fake musical where they go, who are you? Raymond Burr, sir? Transcendent. This is worth
great.
The entire cost of admission. Like, this is what all of this was leading up to. That's so perfect. That's the highlight of the book is Raymond Burr, sir. How clever, how smart. And that entire rap, the thing being within the very clearly understood Hamilton style that we're all so familiar with now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got all of these kaiju references on it too. There's another part in the book where like one of the other prisoners does like a monster rap. They do a kaiju rap. And it's good. Zander Cannon's very good at not just the in-jokes and the wordplay, but making it rhyme and making it sure it fits this meter, it fits this rhythm. I'm very impressed.
It's good stuff. It's fun stuff. I did see in the back of this the deluxe edition that we read here. There is also a Kaijumax theme song, and he has the like notes written out for like if you want to play it on piano or something like that. You can figure out the Kaijumax theme song, which is great.
Perfect.
Yeah. I knew that you would love that play, and that we'd have something to talk about there. That was a lot of fun to see them do that.
I hope we get to see it again. Like I said, there's nobody talks about this thing before it happens. There's no tryouts. It's an exclusively Humongo Brothers production. I guess nobody else was allowed to audition. You're just dropped into all the other monsters gathered around watching them do Godzilla Hamilton.
Great.
And I want another one in volume 3. I want them to just keep doing this.
Yeah. Even all of the artwork and stuff on the covers of the comics is like one of the Humongos doing the like, point up that Hamilton is doing, and it's fantastic. That is still one of the things that amazes me about this book is just how many details Zander Cannon is packing into all of this stuff. Even just dialogue of like a monster where they could have said like, I'll rip you to shreds. They say something specific, like I'm gonna ram a boat in your face or something like that.
Yeah,
and like you'll go in the footnote and you'll be like, he says that because that's what happens in Godzilla versus Bambi or what have you. I don't know. Like there was some like Bambi meets Godzilla thing that he kept referring to in there, and I was just like, what is this? I've never heard of this.
Kyle, go look up Bambi versus Godzilla. The whole thing is like 90 seconds long.
Yeah, I now absolutely know that it exists. It is something that I want to go find and check out. But like he has so many references to things like that just in normal dialogue, you can just skip past a whole page and miss like 20 different references to things here.
That is fascinating. Right. Like there's no generic threat. Every threat has to be a callback to some attack a monster did on another monster in an old movie. Yeah. And then some of this stuff is missable, right? Like if you don't know it or you're not reading a version that has these footnotes, I'm not sure if they're in the like regular single issues or in just the normal collected volumes. But if you don't have that, there's some of these references and things you probably won't pick up on. And it's okay to not know them. It's not like you're missing out on a major like oh, okay, they've been foreshadowing this the whole time. Like I didn't know that. It's just like, oh, he just says this because that's what happened in this one movie. It's just I know all of this stuff, and so I'm putting it in, right? Like that's what it feels like. So I'm still really appreciating that. But let's move on to the women's prison. Yeah.
You mentioned that they had a lot of really good designs. That like I was starting to say like it's familiar enough that you don't feel like you're so far out in a different book. What's happening here? Like you still feel like you're in Kaijumax. there are a few really, really good like details and stuff within the character design to clue you in, like, oh yes, yep, this is a women's prison. But for the most part, they're also not. They're just monsters, right? Like you don't really know. Because I think even Electogor's daughter, you really only know that it's a female version of that monster because they say that it's Electogor's daughter.
Yeah.
There is one character in here, and I don't remember her name, but she's the one that was pregnant. And
Go Space Baby.
Go Space Baby. What a great name.
Who has been mentioned before when they go, when Electogor and is it Red Humungo or Green Humungo? Him and one of the Humungo brothers escape and like go stay at the other one's. They go like crash at his pad, and he's like, "No, I'm on parole. I can't be seen with you guys. Get out, get out." He mentions that like they used to hang out with Go Space Baby, and like he used to date her, and she sort of fell in with the wrong crowd and fell into drugs. And the last time they saw each other, she like barely recognized him. And yeah, so when we see her and she's pregnant, I was thinking that's who the father was whichever Humungo brother that was.
Yeah, because she when you meet her, the one detail that I want to point out about her design is that she does have these like hoop earrings that are just that are just like these big steel girders that she's like wrapped up in like a circle. Great stuff. But yeah, when you meet Go Space Baby, and she does start talking about the father of her child, she never names him. She never says like, "Oh, Daniel, I can't wait for Daniel to get over it." Right? It's not that. That's
the secret twist, is that every monster's real given name is Daniel.
Exactly. No. Like she just keeps saying like I love him. He's great. He's cleaned up his act. Like he'll be here. And that's kind of it. That's all you get. You're just like, I don't know. Everyone's like, are you sure? Like maybe he's not coming. I don't know. He'll be here. I know it. I know he'll be here. He said he'll be here. And you don't figure out who the father is until she gives birth. To which. Do we want to say who the father is now, or do we want to go into Dr. Zhang's story? Because they're
well, Dr. Zhang does befriend her. People don't really know what to do with Dr. Zhang over there, and I think a lot of the prisoners don't know she's a normal human woman. She's the doctor from the other Kaijumax who just got stuck in her supersized Ultraman form. Like, I think they think she's a giant robot or she's from space or something. They think she's one of them. Yeah. And she starts trying to help out the doctor there in the Kaijumax women's prison. And he like doesn't take her seriously at all. He's like, yeah, you can like help hand me stuff. And she's like, I went to 12 years of monster medical school. Please treat me like a doctor.
I'm a better doctor than you. Like,
yeah. And like she forms a really sweet relationship with Go Space Baby, who's a real sweetheart, and I love her design. She looks like a big yellow chicken, and her belly is just like a crystal mound.
Yeah,
it's so funny looking. Like they're really good friends, and so Dr. Zhang has to like push this other like inept doctor out of the way. Like, no, this is a breech birth. You don't know what you're doing. She's my friend. I'm a doctor. I'm going to do this, even if I have to lock you out of the room.
Yeah. And so Dr. Zhang helps Go Space Baby birth her child. They pull the child out, and it looks exactly like Zon.
Like an exact tiny Zon. Like there's 0% of Go Space Baby in that design.
There is a little bit because she has more of like the crystals and stuff on her, and the baby has some of that on too. But it is still very much like, oh, the father is Zon. Oh shit! Like, no wonder he can't be here. Like, he's not here.
Like, that's
oh.
I think that's such a good reveal, because even if Zahn was still alive, we know what a bad dude he is.
Yeah. I mean, he is in jail. It's not like he could really. I don't know if that is a thing. If like they will let inmates go visit other inmates within the prison. Like, I don't feel like that's a thing, but I don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah. So I just like in my mind, like once I saw that, it was like, oh, he was never gonna be there.
Yeah.
Like, and she's just like disillusioned because like not only is he in jail, but he started up another relationship with Dr. Zhang. Then Dr. Zhang killed him on top of all of that. Like, there's just layer upon layer of like, he was never going to be there. And she just doesn't realize that. Go-Go Space Baby is just
so tragic.
Yeah. But then I feel like it was kind of revealed that Go-Go Space Baby did kind of eventually put it together of why Dr. Zhang was there.
I think maybe Dr. Zhang had told her, I was in a bad relationship. I killed him. That's how I got here. I think that's what happened, that she just alluded to it. And then Go-Go Space Baby just sees the look on her face when she sees the baby. And she's like, oh, it was Zahn.
Yeah,
you dated and killed Zahn.
Yeah. So big revelations with that. I'm imagining that the next 2 volumes will stay more so on the women's prison side. But like I said, this is also just a giant kaiju story. So I feel like there'll be some big thing. There'll be reunions. There'll be some big fight or something like that. We might not stick the entire 2 volumes in the women's prison. But I want to know a little bit more about that and what's happening with that storyline, because they do try to go after her after Dr. Zhang, after the baby's been born. But there's all sorts of other stuff happening in the women's prison at the same time too. There is this Queen Bee monster who is like using a few of the inmates to it's also this like kind of religion thing, but it is more like a culty religion, if that makes sense. It is this like, I feel like you made all of this stuff up. What's going on here? But she's producing this honey that her followers feed off of. And then there is this other monster, this like Cthulhu. I mean, like it does not look like Cthulhu, but the like.
But she's from that mythos, right? Yeah, her name is like Goat of 1,000 Young. That's Goat. Goat is cool. She's like a goat skull that's just propped up on a giant body of worms.
Spaghetti. Yeah, like looking stuff. Fantastic. And she kind of gets mixed up in this cult, but also she like, I guess her power is that she can like suck the dreams out of people, and as a result produce this like black tar like liquid that I guess also makes people hallucinate and follow her. Like they get addicted to it so much that it's something with that. So things go wrong very fast with Queen Bee and this little goat lady. And Goat Lady ends up kind of taking over and starting this like religious war within the women's prison. And the way the women's prison is run is like all of the like board of directors, like the warden and her like immediate subordinates, they are all in these mech suits that form up like Voltron. And they're like wandering around the prison that way, and they're trying to be more like they're trying to not run it like a typical prison. They are trying to be more like, okay, let's explore therapy, like let's explore like education, and how can we actually rehabilitate these prisoners to go back out into society once they've served their sentence. And not all of the guards there really believe that will work and stuff like that. So when it becomes obvious that there is this kind of like weird religious war going on, they don't all agree on how to handle it, and things just go bad very quickly as we find out that like one of the feet, the like drivers on like in the foot is also hooked on all this blacks, that like things just go wrong so fast. And we see Electogor's daughter get caught up in all of this stuff. She gets beaten up trying to protect Dr. Zhang. It's the whole thing is a mess. It goes bad very fast. But in
Electogor's daughter.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I don't remember her name. I think it starts with a Z or an X or something.
Torgax or something.
Torgax. Like maybe it's a son who's like Z or X or something. Torgax. Classic girl named Torgax.
Right.
But like she has really hardened up in the time since her dad disappeared. And Elector's got these sort of like uranium orbs that grow out of his back and out of his like big back like dinosaur scales, and she's kind of got the same thing. But I don't know if like
spiky though.
Yeah, and so she would have like people come over to the cave, and she'd tell her little brother like, go in the other room, go in the other cave, don't look. And these people would like these other monsters would like lick the uranium off of the like crystalline shards of her back to get high.
Yeah.
And like that's how she like paid for her and her brother to have food and shelter and everything.
Yeah.
And she's really aggressive. Like we're not directly following her, which I think is interesting. She's just another piece of the world that the other characters that we are following see. Like we don't get her perspective, but we see Dr. Zhang or Go-Go Space Baby looking at her like starting fights in the cafeteria line.
Yeah.
Like she really hasn't. She hardened up a lot, and she has not really softened up much. Like it's going to be a longer journey for her to kind of come back around to being a well-adjusted young lady.
Yeah. I'm also wondering if that particular style of monster, species of monster, if the female are the ones that are more aggressive and
maybe
hardened, or if that is just a thing of their both in environment and disposition. Like, is it like, did her uranium crystals deposits, I'm not sure exactly what to call them, did they harden up and become jagged because she had to become more hardened and aggressive? And like their father's not a hardened criminal, and his are these like bulbous, like egg-shaped things.
Yes,
like he's
exactly.
much softer, right, in his design. So it could be that the women of that species are the more aggressive ones, in that he was just hoping to raise his daughter where she wouldn't have to rely on those instincts.
There's also, I don't remember her name, but there's another interesting prisoner over here in the women's side who she looks just like a big burly dinosaur with a bunch of tattoos, and she spends a lot of time over in the exercise yard. Like she just jogs back and forth, like she's just trying to keep in shape. Other people like make fun of her, try and tease her. She just doesn't engage. She's like, I'm just here doing my own thing. I'm working on myself. And she was the foe of this another sort of Ultraman type of hero who's like a real heartthrob, a real celebrity. And people are like, tell me about the time you fought him. Oh my God. Do you guys like know each other?
Him. She wasn't the
I think maybe she was to begin with, but then they started a romance. And like this monster also mentions she has a husband on the outside. And it turns out that's him.
Yeah, because it seemed like they were fending off some kind of alien invasion. And if I remember correctly, it was the alien species that Alf is. Like they fended off
from Planet Melmac.
But but she got arrested as the like, you're just, because I think in the process she destroyed a bridge that and so they like took that as like, oh, she's hostile, she's destroying property, whereas her boyfriend then got praised and paraded around town as like the hero and the savior of this heady, and so he's like living it up as a celebrity and going on all these parades and talk shows and all that stuff while she is stuck in this prison. And yes, some of the inmates like find out that she is married to him, and they all think that her husband is super hot, and so they're just like, what was it like being with him? Oh my god. And that she's just like, oh my god, like let me just jog in peace, please.
Yeah and he comes to visit her, but he's like on his phone. He's like, sorry babe, they got a ticker tape parade for me, I gotta go to. I hope you're doing okay. And he's like, I'll put money on your card. And she's like, are you sure? Because you didn't put money on my card last time.
Yeah. And she's like trying to buy something at the commissary. She can't because he again did not put money on her card. And then we find out that not only is he a dick, but he's also cheating on her with someone else on the outside. So things not going well over there. But we do catch up with, again, I'm terrible with names. I don't remember this guy's name at the top of my head, but he was the inmate from Kaijumax that was scared to go smaller because he was
the guard. His name was
right. Yeah.
Was his name Jiong or something like
Zhang.
that?
Yeah.
Zhang. And his wife, his robot wife, that's Chisato, right? That's her name. That's Mechazon's sister.
Yes, exactly. And we catch back up with him when Dr. Zhang is now in the women's prison, and he is now a guard for the women's prison. And he sees her and he's like, oh, Dr. Zhang, I wasn't expecting to see you here. Like all, starting to make small talk. And then, you know, on the loudspeaker is like, all right, inmates, get to your cells. And she's like, all right, I gotta go. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. That's just for the inmates and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, I gotta go, and leaves. And he's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird. Yeah. Why are you in this prison? This is weird here. But at the same time, his whole thing is that, his wife at home is pregnant. He needs to make a little bit of extra money.
And I love that they don't explain how this human man who just has a big mech suit got a robot lady pregnant, and she just has like a big bump on her robot body. It's really cartoony. It's really silly. Like all the emotions are real, but the logic is like just hand waved away. Like
it's not.
This robot's pregnant with her human husband. Don't worry about it.
Like, did they have to like decide they wanted to make one, and then the wife is like, well, I guess I got some extra like space inside my body, I could start working on a new prototype. Like 9 months of R&D, and they're ready to like make this new mech. But the wife is at home pregnant. He needs to make a little bit of extra money to help cover costs, but he can't really get that at the women's prison. It got denied. And so he ends up starting to like smuggle in some cigarettes, those smokestacks that you would see there. And he's selling that to Baba Yaga. And eventually, in the midst of all of the shenanigans that's happening in the women's prison, Baba Yaga gets taken out of her home. We don't know what happens to her at first. We do see her later on, but then there's another inmate who's now like sitting on top of the house and using that as her like mobile.
Oh, and that's throne. That's that lady who owns the Moon Casino.
Yes.
And like her son died over in regular Kaijumax, and she was like absolutely spoiling him, like bribing the guards to give him all this stuff. But she's like, don't give him drugs. I don't want him hooked on drugs. And he gets one drug and he dies.
Yeah. And so she is kind of like wiggling her way up to the top of the food chain here in the women's prison, but is like taking over all of Baba Yaga's like previous circles and backdoor dealings and stuff like that. So whereas Zhang was okay with smuggling a few extra cigarettes into the prison to sell to Baba Yaga, this character is like, cigarettes aren't gonna cut it. We need you to get uranium. And he's just like, the hard stuff? No thanks, I don't want to be a part of this. And then she's like, well, you're gonna have to be, because we sent someone to your home, to your wife. And he's just like, oh, fuck. And he goes straight home, and yes, someone has attacked his wife. And I did read the footnotes in this section here, and Zander Cannon was like, hey, I didn't want to fridge the wife. That's a terrible trope. It was terrible when it first happened, and the fact that it keeps happening, and it's just like, why are we still doing that? He was like, I wanted to avoid that and flip that on its head. So yes, when Zhang gets there to his house, the house is wrecked. He's calling out for his wife. There's no answer. He's fearing the worst. He sees his wife, and she is beaten up. Yes. But he's like, are they still here? Where are they? And she like points over and is like, you should see the other guy, right? And he's just fucked up, right? So I did like that like she's hurt, she's had a rough time, but she's survived, she's okay. And they immediately call for help of like, hey, the baby is coming right now. On top of all of this, they give birth, but to make the birth easier for her, he has to power down and he has to get smaller. He's the only one, and this was like the biggest fear of him, is that like, if I go small, I'll be squished. Like I don't want to do that, but he's the only one that can like get this like needle not only inside her but in her body to the right spot, to where it needs to be.
He has to like shrink down and climb inside of his giant robot wife.
Right. It's what was that old sci-fi
Inner Space?
There is that. That's not necessarily the one I'm thinking of.
Well, it's like
in all sorts of sci-fi
stuff. Fantastic Voyage.
Yes. Yeah.
Inner Space is the 80s version of that. Yeah, we saw the Venture Brothers do it. We've all done it.
Like we see that stuff, and he plugs it in like right at the moment that like the baby is coming out. So she is pushing, she's yelling, she's screaming, she blows the gasket, and things start falling down on top of him, and it's his worst nightmare. It's his fear. He's getting squished. Thankfully, he does end up surviving. He gets out. By the time he gets out, the baby has already been born, and he's so scared. Like, I guess this is a part of a thing with his mech suit. I don't know exactly how this logic works either. But when he's scared, he grows guns.
Yes,
like there is some kind of like biomechanical thing happening with his suit there, which might explain some of the logic of how they can have a child. There is this like biomechanical thing, right? But he's there. He is just decked out with guns because he is so freaking scared, right? He started this hang with like, maybe he has some like over the shoulder cannons and like something else on the back. Now he is just like decked out to the T, just like, is everything okay? And then she's like, yeah, everything's okay. We're fine. Everything's okay. Here's your son. And the moment he holds his son, you just hear like you just see all these like big letters of like clank, boom, ting, bong, boom, bong. And you think like, oh, he's getting more like he's scared to like hold his child. He doesn't know how to be a father. And then you finally see him and all of the guns have fallen off. And he's just like this Ultraman thing, like holding his son. I was just like, that's a great moment. That was awesome.
It's really sweet. And like Chisato was furious at him for like selling these drugs on the side. You know, even if he did have his limits of, I'll just do cigarettes, I'm not doing any hard drugs. Like he was trying to do this the best way he could, but just the fact that he was doing these illegal activities, Chisato is a justice robot. And like, she's so upset that he done that and he lied to her. She's furious at him and she's yelling at him. And then when the baby's there, she's like, we are going to work through this. We have a lot of problems to get through. I'm not letting you off the hook, but I'm not kicking you out either. And I think that's an interesting starting point for the next time we see this group of characters.
Yeah. I like that, especially these two volumes, now that we've gotten further in the story, are doing kind of these like yin and yang stories, right? Where we have Electogor in the main prison. We have his daughter in the women's one. We have the birth in the prison, the birth out of the prison. There was what was the one I said earlier? Now I completely forget. The one that was like, with the goat, like getting small and being squished. To Wofi like becoming this bigger, more giant monster, right? Like they have these like stories that are either like mirror opposites or are like reflections of the same thing in and out of the prison. And I think that is a really, really cool narrative device. Because not only does it further the stories of the inmates inside the prison, but you can follow the guards outside into their home lives. Like I think it's a way to expand the story, have high stakes for both sides of that, and see the differences between them. Like you can still just be like, hey, like this. Like they were gonna have this inmate give birth with this doctor that has no idea what he's doing. And then for Chisato, like she has these like mech dinosaur nurse people, like we are the hospital. We can bring the hospital to you. And it is this like VR hospital thing that they have there, which was really neat. But just like the amount of like here's the amount of care that this person can get versus here's the amount of care that this person can get, right? Here's this guard that is too scared to go small, and then is like gets to hold his son for the first time, and all of those fears wash away versus here's Dr. Zhang, who is stuck, like wants to go smaller, is stuck as being big, finally gets to go smaller, but then has a bunch of monsters after her, right? Like they all want to kill her now. And so it's just man, like these, like I really, really like what Zander Cannon is doing with this here. So I'm very excited to see what happens in the final 2 volumes of Kaijumax.
Yeah, there's not a lot of larger plot mythology to the story. It's very soap opera-y. It's very interpersonal drama. So I don't know if I can quite tell from here what like the big climax is that the story's going to. But you know where emotionally all the different character journeys need to end up. You know who needs to reconcile. You know who needs to come to terms with what thing in their past and what goals they need to reach. Like I definitely know this is going to be emotionally successful, because I think that is, for as much as this book is such a combination of genre tropes and inside jokes and gags and big monster fights, it's always been very, very sincere. And like I think the characters are emotionally very true. And even when they aren't, you've got that like director's footnote from Zander Cannon saying something like, I think this was paced a little bit too fast to buy that Dr. Zhang and Jean are the Dr. Zhang has fallen for Jean. Of course, Jean never really fell for her. Jean's the worst. But yeah, like it's been nice to see how much this book grows, how much Zander Cannon's writing grows, and how much more careful everything seems to be.
Yeah, because that was something I noticed in the footnotes too, is that the footnotes of those first 2 volumes was a lot of the like, man, if I could go back, I think I'd put one more page in here. Like it was more, I don't want to say regretful, but like more reflective on like what I could do better. Whereas the stuff in volumes 3 and 4 that we read for this time was like, was just like, this line was a reference to that. Like there was no like, I would do this differently. And so it does feel more mature in the story that he's telling. It does feel like he's found his footing of like, all right, we've got the process down. I know my writing style. I know the art. Like I know how to pace this out a lot. And I think that's very evident in just how confident these stories are. All the like this like yin and yang mirror reflection thing that I pointed out. I liked it a lot. There is one more thing I want to briefly touch on that I'm still a little confused on. Kind of. Confused might not be the right word. So last time I was like, I have this weird feeling about some of the language being used in the book, particularly around the use of my Liza, which is a very obvious stand-in for the N word. And I was kind of confused because they kind of make it a point. Last time when I was talking about it, I didn't really know how to like express the like odd feeling I was getting from it. I think I know a little bit more now. I still can't nail it down exactly, but I'm also a pasty McPale white guy, so my opinions on the use of the N word and all of that probably don't mean all that much. So in the first book, I feel like I was a little confused about the use of it because it felt like everyone was saying it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the book also tried to make it a point that monsters weren't necessarily supposed to be representative of a certain like real life culture or people. But then even it, I think this also may have worked negatively for Zander Cannon because they use the word mon as a short for monster, but mon also stereotypically sounds like a Jamaican like island, some kind of like island, the islander accent, which stereotypically is like, okay, this is black people, and so it was like the book is telling me that not everyone here is supposed to be representative of a specific culture, but yet you're giving me language and slang of characters that would be that stuff. And then in this one, I started to I think it was something more early on when we get to the women's prison that I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe it was only the lizard style monsters. Like it was Godzilla and the ones that were like, these are like based off of a lizard. Like those are the ones that are saying it. But then Go Space Baby said it a few times. And I was like, well, she's not a lizard. She's from space.
Yeah.
She's
a space bird.
So there was some like, I'm just having trouble parsing like, is it okay for all of these characters to say stuff like that? Because on top of that, I think this is where we get the first use of my laser with a hard R, still no D at the end, but there are some of the guards that use the like hard R
Mhm.
version of that, which is still like, okay, we know you're saying the N-word, but like this character is also not black. Like so it's just like, I don't, obviously, like with these more human inmate characters, like it is meant to be like, oh, like these guys are just racist and they are they're speciesist or who knows what. Like that is supposed to be, but then you're also trying to tell me that not every monster is representative of a certain culture, but they're all kind of saying so. It's hard to parse out. Like it feels like the cryptids would have their own culture here. It feels like and that doesn't necessarily need to map to like, oh, the cryptids are German people or something like that. But as monsters, right, it feels like they would have their own slang, their own culture, whereas like the Godzilla like monsters might have their own culture here. And I kind of want to explore that a little bit more instead of this kind of blanket of like my Liza or stuff like that. Like I knew that would be in there. I'm not saying stop using my Liza because it's racist or something like that. But I feel like there could be more exploration in that of what are the other slang terms and why does everyone just use that and ambergris or whatever it is. And the one I do like, I have to say the one I love is megafauna. I love that as a substitute for motherfucker. That is great. It's just like that one is that one is just creative in a whole, because it's not necessarily specific to a certain culture. It does not have the like connotations of what the N-word might, and this very obvious like my Liza is just a substitute for that, right? There is that history and those connotations with that. So yeah, I want to know like what are all the slang terms of the like elder gods and stuff like that. What are the slang term? Like we've gotten some of it, especially with the or at least I feel like with the mecha, the mechas, especially with their religion, right? Because that is very prominent to their culture, their programming, worshiping the cloud and stuff like that. But it is also, you don't necessarily need to use that slang with mecha monsters, with mecha kaiju, right? Like you could just have like a cyberpunk techno religion where it's like, oh, we need to go against our programming and upload our consciousness to the cloud and stuff like that. So I just want to see it explored a little bit more. I think that's what my thoughts were. It's just like I was a little bit confused. Now that I've gone on that big long rant, I also want to say that like I feel like I'm reading into that more than I should, and I don't know if it's as big a deal as it needs to be. But I like that was just something that like it stuck with me, if that makes sense.
I do appreciate the creativity that goes into Zander Cannon finding a monster equivalent to a lot of real world slang and terminology. And how there's very few like real world vocabulary letters that he doesn't put through his monster translation machine. Like this is truly going the extra mile. But when it's happening so much, it kind of does make you like look real hard at it. And sometimes if you look too close, it's like, I don't know if all this tracks. I don't know if all this really makes sense.
Exactly. The other thing, because one thing that I thought was neat from the first two volumes is there was a footnote that said like these monsters don't have a word for big. Right.
Yeah.
And they because they are big. Everything is small to them. And I thought that was a neat idea. But I don't think it necessarily tracks, like what you just said. Like I look too hard, maybe it doesn't track because they're all speaking English, or at least this book translates everything into English. but the monsters all understand each other. So does that mean the like Elder Cthulhu mythos monsters are speaking a language that the mecha monsters understand, that the cryptids understand, and like I don't know exactly that, but also they're on Earth. They've been on Earth for a while. They understand the guards and the warden and all of that stuff. I feel like they would learn the language. But again, they seem to all be speaking English. So you would think, like, besides some of the cuss words, because that's the first thing you do when you learn a new language, you learn, like, what's all the dirty words? What's all the naughty words that I can say? Then you learn some more basic concepts, right? I think size would be a fairly basic concept, like size of objects to a monster or to a prison, or like that is not necessarily what you would learn as a human if you're trying to learn a different language, but the immediate difference in species of like, wow, this one is much bigger than me. Like, it's gonna, like, I feel like that's one of the first things you try to convey to the monsters of like, to us, you are big, you are of a size that is like immeasurably more, right? They know what a lot means, right? If I have 1 cup of hot chocolate versus if I have 50,000, like I am the human, the 1 cup of hot chocolate. You are the monster, the 50,000. There's so much more of them. It's large. It's big. It's grande.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, I like all of the creativity that goes in this book. I am having a blast. Checking it out. So good stuff. Good stuff. You have any other kind of final thoughts that you want to bring up? Something else that we missed?
No, I don't remember anything else. I think this covered it.
There you go. Good stuff. I don't think we have any kind of check-in for bingo. Let me just double check here.
Yeah, I don't got anything.
Nothing here. So we're gonna skip that. We also skip recommendations, and we usually save that for the first and the last time we cover something here on our end of the month specials. So we'll get some more recommendations to you here at the end of November when we finish up our coverage of Kaijumax. So Melissa, it's your turn to do some pitches for this next week.
I did the pitches last week. I pitched you 3 different animated movies because I realized, except for animated episodes of live action shows, we haven't covered anything animated this year. We never got to it.
Yeah, I still find that amazingly hard to believe. But yeah, I went back and looked and no anime this year. Who knows? I might do some next week just to be like, we have to get at least one just proper anime in there. Who knows? We'll see. Well,
we've spent a lot of other time in Japan this year.
We've done some
with the various
stuff. Yeah,
with the various kaiju. We've watched plenty of live action movies from Japan this year.
For sure.
So we've been gotten to the animated stuff. So I pitched you 3 cartoon supervillain movies. I pitched you The Bad Guys, Megamind, and Wreck-It Ralph. Not exactly a supervillain, but a movie about what it's like to be an antagonist, what it's like to feel like you're stuck in the bad guy role for your whole life. And you picked Megamind. Next week, we get to talk about the delightful supervillain comedy from DreamWorks Animation, Megamind. One of my faves.
It's going to be a blast. It's going to be so much fun. I hope you join us. But yeah, I think that is about it then for this week for our Kaijumax coverage. So Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WilkyWit. That's WilkyWit. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, show where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kid shows you feel like only you remember.
There you go. If you guys would like to stay up to date with me, I'm at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you'd like to follow all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you're watching the YouTube version of this, we got some more videos right over there. We would love for you to check out. Plenty of stuff, plenty of podcasts for you to check out. But this has been number 230 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.